Did you get everything you needed?
Hardly. While I've got everything I asked of you so far, we're going to need much more to make any progress within the decade. Frankly, I'm shocked you sent anything at all. Stooping low isn't something your family is known for.
I'm not sure what makes you think you're so informed on the history of my family's conduct. I hardly stooped low for you, Chancellor. Everything I sent you I obtained through legitimate means. It's rather easy to make money exporting food these days, and if you haven't heard, food is quite literally our bread and butter.
Making a profit out of others' misery sounds rather low, don't you think? People are starving to death, and it's not just your country, or even your family, but you personally who is making a profit.
Last time I checked, none of our people were starving, Chancellor. And we never got anything from the likes of outsiders but grief and trouble, so if they want food they can pay reparations for it. It's not my responsibility to care for anyone but our own, and if other people are starving then they're lucky to get anything at all from us. So don't twist it.
Is that an inflection of anger I hear in your voice? You shouldn't let such small talk affect you. There are people out there who thrive on social manipulations.
If only there was a telltale sign of who these people might be. Do you have anything useful to add to this conversation, or do you have another vague similarity between me and my parents you want to point out?
Which parent? I'm sometimes of the mind that you got the worst part of each.
Look, just crunch whatever numbers you crunch and get back to me with whatever you need next. But you're not getting anything more than credits until I see a decrease in piracy and see in person what I'm actually paying for here. Pictures and files are all well and good, but they can be faked, and even I could fake some of these.
You'll see it for yourself soon enough. We're hoping for some prototypes in a year or two. Let's hope the people stay hungry for a little bit longer, For both our sakes.
Remind me again how your party keeps getting re-elected.
Maybe when you tell me how your family has stayed on the throne for so long. Now I'll take up no more of our time. Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen. Shtick. Okay, what next? Mr. Severin, did you say I had a visitor?
I did, Your Highness.
Send him or her in then. What do you think, little duck? Can you manage without a bottle for another 30 minutes, or should I play it safe? Mr. Severin, whenever you get the chance, could you bring another bottle of milk?
I happen to have several bottles ready for these occasions. Your visitor actually insisted in bringing one to you, though, so I believe my services are not required on this occasion. I'll send your visitor in.
What? Who in the expanse would insist on bringing me milk? Unless they thought I would want milk. That's just disturbing when I think about it. Unless they knew Rosalie was with me. But what kind of visitor would know that? Oh, please. Where there's one of you, the other isn't far. Figures. Trust you to show up unannounced. You know it's typical for people to ring ahead before they come here. Even the noble families, which includes you. My parents didn't plan on visiting you. They're only here to peruse the latest fashions this side of the planet. Personally, I think the fashions around here are always too... extravagant? No, not extravagant. Ostentatious. Everyone with money likes to look important in the capital. I guess when the capital is the seat of a monarchy though, they have to wear the most outlandish outfits around to even compete with our fashions. Or something else entirely, I don't know. People are weird. Right. Anyway, I did call ahead, but I asked Severin not to tell you I was coming, because half the fun is just the element of surprise. Are you finished doing whatever you were doing? Because we have arrangements. I'm not doing anything right now, but I have appointments with a few ministers in an hour. Not anymore, you don't. You've taken ill and you can't see anyone else today. Do you enjoy wilting away in here, or would you rather do something interesting? When it comes to you, interesting tends to be synonymous with expensive. It was your idea to buy an entire cinema for the sake of one film. What happened to it anyway? I still own it under a different account and name. I had the place done up and had a few extra staff to manage the place. Me being who I am, I get access to films before they even release. I send some of them to the cinema, which shows them a day or two before the rest of the cinemas do, and it's enough to make a tidy profit on the place. Don't I remember less than a year ago you saying something about how abuse of power was bad? It's hardly abuse of power. The business was going under anyway. Everyone who works there still has a job because of me, which is a better deal than anyone expects in a competitive market. And I'm not making money on the side here or anything. The profit is being put to good use. See? Abuse of power isn't all bad now, is it? What good cause is this credit going to? I'll tell you later. What occasion am I abandoning my prison for?
Eating out. You can bring your sister as well if you'd like. The sunlight will do you both good. Wait, I know that look. It isn't a complete waste of time. We aren't going to your typical club dinner or anything.
Is that everything?
Yep.
You have got to be joking me. You can't expect me to eat here, right? Look at this place, it's not very, well,
Classy.
clean. How do people breathe down here? So stuffy and cramped I can hardly walk 5 steps without bumping into someone. These people are miners, for goodness sake. They've got drills for hands. They're just as likely to impale me as they are to say hello.
Oh, don't be so hyperbolic. We're lucky they've got it so good here. Imagine being a miner in another country. Entire arms lopped off for a big rusty drill. Or even 2 drills in place of both arms, also they can dig up more ore for their employers.
Huh. Maybe we should stop paying miners by the hour and take a page out of our old corporate books. I suppose it is a relief to know it could be much worse. I always wondered, why do they, or why even do we, need miners with drills for hands? I don't know much about mining, but isn't there heavy machinery and big automated mechs for this labour? Why have 1,000 small drills when we can just use big drills? Not that it's our position to pry into the mining industry, but wouldn't it be just easier to do it with automated machines rather than employ and amputate 100,000 people?
Not when all the heavy machinery puts 100,000 people out of work, it isn't. It works fine if you don't have to be held accountable for it. You can turn normal people into beggars, thieves and murderers, all in the name of profit as long as you've got the right politician in your pocket. I've heard about the other kinds of mines other nations run. They send as many people they can into their mines and the workers are just told to dig, and they get paid dirt for what they find. Whenever they get ill or injured, they just toss them back out into the street. Obviously if our parliament ever let that happen here, then said lovely little parliament we spend so much effort keeping on side would be ruined by such a scandal. And then we get some complete whack party popping up against the established parties we so dearly love. Still, the kingdom does need to have a functional mining industry. We've still got blueprints for heavy machinery from our old family corporate days. Since my family literally made and owned the schematics the factories used to design our mining drills, we have full DRM on this. Kinda. By parliamentary law, we have to let our state industries use the designs for free.
All in perfect balance then. Your family, by law, lends a design for bigger drills to factories we can't own, by law. Then they use the drills you give them to support a work scheme that employs people simply for the sake of providing employment. The Parliament gets a pat on the back for being so good to the people, while a third of the ministers call us money-sucking louts as we simultaneously prop up their entire mining and factory industry that we're not even allowed to own. Why do I feel my sympathy for democracy waning ever so slightly?
You'd rather just leave the people to starve on the street than give them a job?
All I'll say is the people ought to appreciate what really happens here. If we, or more specifically your family, owns the rights to the heavy drills, then it should be your family that gets the profit. Of course we would still employ the people. It's our responsibility to provide for them. But how can people expect us to provide for them when all they do is take, and we never get anything back? The moment we try to take an inch, we're suddenly demonized by the very people we employ, or help to employ. But a politician whose party won the vote for employing said people can ask for anything and be applauded. If it weren't for all the backroom arrangements we have, we could have been ousted a century ago by the very people we feed. Because some idiot who couldn't even run his house thought he knew who was most fit to run a country. I mean, look at these people, these miners. They all get to vote, but what do they know about the art of statecraft? I'm 14 and I already know more about politics and ruling than they will actually know in their entire—
Are you alright? That is the most not you sentence I ever heard you utter. What happened to all the talk of fairness and division of power you liked? Maybe the air here really is carrying something nasty.
I say one thing about how I would like to get a return on our expenses, as all people should do, and that makes me a bad guy. I'm not advocating for the end of Parliament here, I'm just saying that if they trust me to support them, then they need to offer something back. And this is criticism coming from a person who told me to bring my sister with me knowing that this was our destination. Unfair, I say.
Yeah, you can choose the venue next time, but now I've given you a taste, or smell, of the real world, it's your turn. Cinema profits. Where do they go?
Remember the inspector with the Zro pill I told you about? Well, after trying to feed the Zro to Rosalie, I tried to get an explanation from the council, but after trying to deny the inspection ever happened failed, they ended up saying the whole thing must have been a mistake. And with that, they shut down the whole inquiry. I tried to look up the organisation he was part of, but he never actually said who he worked for. Our records have nothing on him, but we wouldn't have if he wasn't born in Veluteria. Even then though, I couldn't find any information on him or his organisation from any records I could buy from corrupt bureaucrats. The whole thing is a dead end. But when he asked us about the death of my mother, he was particularly interested in how she died. Then when we told him no one knew, he made a point to say how unusual it was for someone so high up to die. So what interested him was the fact that a mother who had access to the best healthcare available could die of unknown causes. So now, so am I. Our record keeping in Veluteria is pretty efficient. It was easy to bring up maternal mortality rates and find all the cases where the death of the mother was unknown. The rate for unknown causes of death during childbirth is minuscule. Even for people who couldn't make it to hospital and unfortunately died, we can always tell how they died in almost every case.
How minuscule is this chance to die of completely unknown causes?
1 in a million. Less. But then it gets interesting. In many cases, the newborn child has no parents to care for it. For whatever reason they don't have a father doesn't really matter. Well, these children whose mother specifically died of completely unknown causes always ends up in a certain kind of orphanage. Orphanages funded by the council.
So the one good thing they could have actually been doing for the people isn't all that good after all. Typical.
Almost anything good the council does has an ulterior motive these days. But this goes deeper. The council set up the orphanage support program over a millennia ago, after the Proforan crisis among a dozen other support and economic revival schemes. Call it a coincidence, maybe, but every scheme and welfare program besides the orphan support since then has been scrapped, and to this day this is the one thing they downright insist on giving every nation. They're so willing to do it, even we have council-funded orphanages.
Here we are. Who's got...
Just put it here and we'll sort it later. Okay, so these council orphanages, they get all the children whose mother died of unknown causes during childbirth, in addition to the usual orphans they house, while all the non-funded orphanages never get orphans whose mother died of unknown causes. Thankfully our record keeping is well above board the usual standards of many other nations, so I pulled out some statistics and you'll like this. Looking at the adoption rates of all orphans in the Kingdom of Veluteria, including our council-funded ones, only around 1 of every 100 orphans are adopted each year.
That's horrible. Why would I like that?
No, not that. The low adoption rate is bad, yes, but it's not the issue here. While every 3 in 100 normal orphans are adopted, orphans whose mother died of unknown causes, specifically during childbirth remember, not any time after, well they make up less than 0.1 of the total orphan population, but have an average adoption rate of about 65 in every 100, or 65%. And from the records, 92% of those orphans are adopted by people who were not citizens of the kingdom, while most normal orphans are adopted by people who live in the kingdom. Someone is adopting these orphans specifically because their mothers died mysteriously.
Chicken.
Wait, I'm not finished. I bought a few more files from other nations about these orphanages, which is what the cinema money has been paying for, by the way, and the same rates show up. Then we get to my final points in this conspiracy. For one, these unusual orphans drop off the grid completely once adopted, which wouldn't be unusual given they don't actually keep their records very organised or efficient, but that happens with all our records of unusual orphans as well. And finally, I bought the video files of as many adoption interviews from council-funded orphanages as possible. I put the videos through facial recognition software looking for a match with the inspector's face, and I got him. Out of 30,000 interviews over the past 3 years, there were 7 cases of orphan whose mother had died of unknown causes during childbirth. And out of those 7, our shady inspector appeared in 2 of them, and in the other 5 were other people dressed in a similar suit. These inspectors end up taking all 7. In both the interviews he was in, he adopted the child, but in both the interviews he said he didn't have children. He even talks about doing a test to make sure of something in his interviews, but he must have done those off camera because I didn't see it. Odds are his test is something to do with Zro, if our experience is anything to go by.
But that means you have the perfect way to catch one of them. They only turn up for these super rare mysterious death cases, right? Well, we can fake the records to make a completely mysterious death, and one will come running to the orphanage the child is supposed to be living in.
I don't know, maybe.
There's only one way to find out. Which means if you're going to leave nothing to chance, you're soon to be the proud secret owner of an orphanage. Yay! You're such a nice guy, using your money to support orphans. Now eat your food before it gets cold, chicken.
Stop calling me chicken. You'd have screamed too if you woke up with a spider on your face.
You screamed like a girl.
So do you, and I was 8.
I am a girl.
Can't win. I'll just shut up and... What is this?
I don't actually know. It sounded alright on the menu.
How do you not know what you ordered? You said it to the waiter like 2 minutes ago. Wait, how did they make this food in 2 minutes?
Oh, that's not a drink dispenser. That machine just squeezed out something solid onto a plate.
This is wobbling. How am I supposed to eat this? Isn't this meant to be meat? Meat doesn't wobble like jelly.
You know what? It may look disgusting, it may smell disgusting, it might have even sounded disgusting on the menu now that I think about it, but it's not actually that bad.
I saw you chop off a bit and hide it under the table. You just want to see me eat this, don't you?
Do it.
No.
Chicken!
No.
If you don't eat it, Rosalie will.
I don't think even she'll eat this. Baby food is baby food, but this is just... Again, what is this? Compressed jelly meat?
Shut up and eat it, you pansy. If you don't experience the people's food, how can you ever rule them?
With a full stomach?
Just eat the jello meat, or I'll force feed it to you. You can't fight back against a cripple.
Why do I ever trust you? You never tell anyone about this. You too, Rosalie, or I'll never feed you any chocolate. Ever.
And?
This is... I feel like I've just willingly partaken in a plot to assassinate myself.
You look like you just swallowed off milk. Wash it down with... actually, never mind. Whatever this is might actually kill you. Let's just pay the bill and go.
Oh, but haven't you heard? People are starving out there. You can't waste such good food without at least taking a bite.